Hello, students. Today, we are going to study the arrival of Europeans in India. This journey begins with Vasco da Gama's arrival in 1498 and continues through the rivalry between the Portuguese, Dutch, British, French, and Danes. By the end of this session, you'll see how the European arrival reshaped Indian history and laid the foundation of colonial rule. The age of exploration in the 15th and 16th centuries brought Europeans to India. There was great demand for spices, silk, and gemstones. But after the fall of Constantinople in 1453, land routes to the east were disrupted. So, Europeans began searching for new sea routes using inventions like the compass, astrolabe, and better ships. The Portuguese were the first to arrive. Vasco da Gama reached Calicut in 1498, welcomed by the Zamorin. In 1500, Cabral established a factory at Cochin, and in 1503 the first European fort was built there. In 1510, Albuquerque captured Goa, making it the capital of Portuguese India. The Portuguese monopolized the spice trade and introduced crops like cashew and tobacco. They set up the first printing press in India at Goa in 1556. But their rigid religious policies, including the Goa Inquisition, caused their decline in India. The Dutch East India Company was formed in 1602. They established posts at Masulipatam, Pulicat, and Chinsura. Their main focus was on the spice trade in Indonesia. But their decline in India began after their defeat by the British in the Battle of Bedra in 1759. The English East India Company was formed in 1600. The first ship reached Surat in 1608 under Captain Hawkins. In 1615, Sir Thomas Roe secured a firman from Jahangir, allowing them to trade. Gradually, they set up factories in Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta, moving from trade into political control. The French East India Company was established in 1664. They set up bases in Surat, Masulipatam, Pondicherry, and Chandarnagore, with Pondicherry as their capital. The Carnatic Wars, 1746 to 1763, weakened them and strengthened the British. The Danes, on the other hand, established settlements in Tranquebar, 1620, and Serampur, 1755, but later sold them to the British in 1845.
Sir, may I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Among all these European powers, which one influenced India the most in the beginning?
Good question. Initially, the Portuguese had the strongest influence because they controlled the spice trade and introduced printing and new crops. But in the long run, the British became dominant as they shifted from trade to political control. Let us compare the major European powers. Portuguese arrived in 1498, focused on trade and Christianity, and declined by the 18th century. Dutch arrived in 1605, focused on spice trade, defeated by the British in 1759. English arrived in 1608, shifted from trade to politics, and eventually established the British Raj. French arrived in 1664, lost the Carnatic Wars, limited to Pondicherry. Danish arrived in 1620, had limited trade, and sold their settlements to the British in 1845. The arrival of Europeans ended the monopoly of Arab traders and introduced new crops, weapons, and ideas. Their rivalries led to military conflicts and ultimately the foundation of British colonial rule. Key facts include Vasco da Gama arriving at Calicut in 1498, Almeida as the first Portuguese viceroy, first printing press at Goa in 1556, British trading rights granted in 1615, Battle of Bedra in 1759, Carnatic Wars between 1746 and 1763.
Sir, why did the British succeed in India while others like the Portuguese, Dutch, and French declined?
Excellent question. The British succeeded because they focused not only on trade but also on political control. They built strong naval power, formed alliances with Indian rulers, and defeated rivals like the French in the Carnatic Wars. This gave them a long-term advantage and led to the establishment of the British Raj. Today, we trace the arrival of Europeans in India from Vasco da Gama in 1498 to the rivalry among European powers. The Portuguese opened the door, but the British eventually walked through and built an empire. These developments set the stage for 200 plus years of colonial rule. That's all for today's session. Jai Hind!